Sarcastic, podcast that talks all things movies and television. I'm Natalie, and I'm your host. On today's episode, we're going to do the spoiler talk of Deadpool and Wolverine. I wanted to try and squeeze this in before we moved on to talk about Trap. I think that one comes out on Friday, so I'm speedy trying to get this up. But I did want to leave some time for everyone to see it, so we weren't talking spoilers before people had the chance to go out and see Deadpool and Wolverine. So as we are having this discussion, I have seen Deadpool and Wolverine twice now. I do really want to go see it for a third time, but I just haven't found the right time, so to speak, to be able to go and do that. But I do want to, because I knew I wanted to go see Deadpool and Wolverine a second time before I did my spoiler talk, because I wanted to see if I could catch some additional stuff that maybe, I had just too much excitement happening the first go round to notice a lot of things. So I went and saw it for a second time, and then I've been seeing people all over the internet post screenshots of things that I completely missed. And so now I have to go. I have to. It is imperative to go for a third time so I can pick up the moments that I missed from even the second go round. I mean, I feel like this is going to be one of those movies where there are so many little Easter eggs and all of that good stuff happening in this film that I'm going to be watching it for the next 10 years, trying to pick out little things in the background and all of that sort of thing. So right away out of the gate, I have to talk about that opening sequence. I feel like the opening sort of credits of Deadpool and Wolverine may be my favorite opener of any movie so far. And I really think that it even outdoes like the incredible opening sequences like Game of Thrones and House of the Dragon always do with the tapestry and all of that stuff. This one I feel like blows it completely out of the water. I was unsure of how exactly they were going to go about bringing Logan or Wolverine back into this movie. I knew that they were going to do multiverse stuff. I had watched Loki, the Marvel series, on TV with the TVA and the multiverse threads and all of that stuff. I didn't really like that show because I'm not a huge fan. I did like Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. I did enjoy that film, but I'm not a huge fan of the multiverse. To me, the multiverse just sort of kind of ruins the ability to have a really good Marvel universe. Like, I know it exists and all of that jazz, but to me, it kind of is like how Disney has sort of axed lightsabers being able to kill people. And now anyone can just survive being stabbed by a lightsaber, which would inevitably really destroy all your innards. So the multiverse for me kind of was that sort of thing of like, no character can be dead now. They can all come back to life because you can just pick a new variant of that character, still have the same actor play them, still continue doing movies with that character in there. So to me, it kind of ruins some of that a little bit. And I was really hardcore expecting, especially since Deadpool, had been bought and had moved over to Disney, that when they were bringing back Wolverine after his death at the end of Logan, that it was really just going to be one of those things of like, ooh, we just picked a new variant, and it's the same Logan, it's the same guy, which in this movie, I feel like they did much better because of that opening sequence, because it didn't destroy what had happened in Logan. It still very much was there, but there's this really funny, not that this should be funny, but funny sort of desecration of Logan's body that essentially Deadpool digs him up expecting him to be alive. And when he is just skeletal, like he's just bones at that point, that Deadpool uses all of those bones as weapons. And I found it hilarious, just hilarious. And I loved his little one-liner of like, there are 206 bones in the human body, 207 if I'm watching Gossip Girl. And I was like, well, of course, because his wife was on Gossip Girl. Like, I just love that he puts those little things in. I think probably my favorite moment, which is, this is going to be dumb, but like my favorite moment of that opening sequence was Deadpool looking at the skeleton of Wolverine and calling him Hugh, I really loved that. Like, I loved all of the moments of them sort of breaking the fourth wall or really taking it out of it just being a typical film. I know a lot of people have complained about the number of times that the fourth wall is broken and how it, takes them out of the film and they don't enjoy that sort of thing. I live for them. I think that they are the most fun aspects of this film. I think that they are just a hoot and they are so much enjoyment for me as a whole. But I love the montage. After this, of course, you get introduced to the TVA. We get introduced to exactly what's going on and why Deadpool is looking for another Wolverine, like what his motivation is in this film. And I liked the way that they set that up. I liked that it was very singular, that it wasn't the TVA that we saw from Loki. It wasn't this giant corporation. It was like this very narrowed down, we're just looking at this one sort of group of the TVA that is involved in this film. And then you see Deadpool obviously going out and trying to find another variant of Wolverine that was going to work in keeping his timeline alive. And I liked the montage of all of them. I really loved little Wolverine, like the comic accurate little Wolverine, because seeing that on film, one of my biggest pet peeves with the X-Men films, and I think that I mentioned this one in the last review that I did, but I may not have. But one of my biggest gripes about all of the X-Men films and why I really wasn't the biggest fan of them is because I really liked the cartoon of X-Men when I was a kid, and all of the casting for all of the characters to me just wasn't good enough, right? And that is one of the reasons why I didn't necessarily enjoy Hugh Jackman's portrayal of Wolverine, because Wolverine is supposed to be very short in the cartoon. He's very short in the comics. He's very short. And so on screen, I was like, I don't understand why they got someone who's like 6'2" to play Wolverine. But then when you see the sort of comic accurate short Wolverine, like in a film, and I know that in Deadpool and Wolverine, obviously they exaggerated that quite a bit. But I was like, oh, that's why they picked someone that's 6'2". So much makes sense right now. Like, it's all coming together. I loved seeing like the Wolverine in this one. I thought that was pretty funny. I knew that Henry Cavill was going to be in it because some of the spoilers obviously had been spoiled, for me at least, long before the movie came out. So I knew that there were going to be certain people in the film before ever going to see it. And so I knew Henry Cavill was going to do a cameo. I 100% thought that Henry Cavill was the one that was sitting at the poker table with his back to the camera, and that as soon as they like panned around and you saw the front, that was going to be him. And so I was pretty surprised that that was still Hugh Jackman and that the Cavill was a totally different character. I know that there have been some people now calling for Henry Cavill to be recast as Wolverine, and I am definitely of the opinion that Hugh Jackman has to do this until he's 90. Like, come on, Disney. Like, I really just can't picture anyone else doing it now. And I think that Deadpool and Wolverine is why I feel that way, is because this is the first time I think I've ever seen Hugh Jackman play Wolverine where I was like, no, yeah, he's just Wolverine. I can't believe that I didn't see it before, because it's just so clear to me in this movie where maybe I was too wrapped up prior to this in how much I disliked the casting that they did for other characters, that I never really was zeroing in on him and whether or not he was doing a good job, because I was sort of distracted by how much I hated everybody else as far as casting was done in those films. So this was the first time where I wasn't distracted by anyone else. I didn't dislike anyone else's performances. And I could actually see Hugh Jackman play Wolverine really for who Wolverine was. And I liked the fact that they still kept, Logan's story very true. They didn't really destroy that or ruin that for audiences, but they still kind of gave him a somewhat touching backstory for this particular variant that was still, something that you could overcome, something that would have to go through it. And one of the things that I really loved was at the very, I'm skipping ahead, but at the very, very end of the movie when they come out, and Deadpool is like, I promised him you could fix his timeline. And the woman from the TVA, whose name I do not remember right now, but the woman from the TVA said, his timeline and all of those terrible things that happened is the reason that he is the Wolverine that did the right thing today. So there's nothing to fix. And that I feel like is such a good kind of just message to put out into the world, that bad things can happen to you and you might think that, you wish that you could go back and erase that thing. But really all of those decisions, even bad decisions that you make, kind of make you who you are going forward. And it's up to you to decide to do the right thing, to heal those things, or to move in a better direction, even if you have made terrible mistakes. And I think that that's amazing to come out of, just a silly, stupid film, that there are always such heartfelt and really good kind of moments and things that you can still take away from it. So I love that about Deadpool and Wolverine. And I also love all of the cameos in this movie. I knew some of them. Like I said, I knew that Henry Cavill was going to be in as a cameo, and I knew that Channing Tatum was going to play Gambit. Of course, I didn't know how that was going to turn out, but I knew already that it had kind of been leaked or, ruined or whatever. It's not ruined for me, because to me, you can leak that someone is going to be in the movie, but it's not necessarily a ruining spoiler for me, because even though I know that Henry Cavill is going to, for instance, be in Deadpool and Wolverine, I don't know how that role is going to happen. I don't know how he's going to play it. And so the same was true for seeing Channing Tatum come in as Gambit, because I didn't know how that was going to be portrayed. I didn't know if they were going to do it funny. I didn't know if he was going to do it serious. I didn't know if this was going to be trying to set him up to still have his own standalone movie, which I do want, by the way. Like, I know that his Gambit in this was just, meant to be funny, and that they did it as kind of a complete joke. Like, I love that he's like, who's your dialect coach? The Minions. I just love the fact that he played it up to a 10 as opposed to necessarily being serious about it. But I genuinely really enjoyed seeing Channing Tatum as the Gambit. I liked him, and I enjoy what he looked like as the character way more than the guy that they cast in the actual X-Men films. I think it just looked, to me, again, more just cartoon accurate for me. And I liked that. And I know that for Channing Tatum, Gambit is the same kind of character to him as Deadpool was to Ryan Reynolds. So, he obviously very much wants to play that character. And I know that he was very honored by the fact that Ryan Reynolds had come to him and asked him to do it, because in Channing's words, he thought he had lost Gambit forever, and he loved the fact that he was able to get on screen and actually do this character. So I loved getting to see him there. All of the rest of the cameos, I had no clue about. I had no idea that Chris Evans was going to be in it as his Fantastic Four character. I had no idea that Wesley Snipes was going to be there. I audibly screeched in the movie when I saw Wesley Snipes walk in as Blade, because that to me is his little quote of there is only one, there's only ever going to be one. I stick by that. It's not that I have anything against Mahershala Ali. I don't. I think he's a good actor, but I really I don't know. I feel like there has to be a good reason to recast someone's character or to remake that. And considering how much trouble they seem to be having, I think that the second director now that they've had on the film has completely walked from the new Blade franchise. So it's if you can't get it together, don't do it. Don't ruin it for the sake of just making more money on a reboot. I would, even though I know that he is older, I genuinely would much rather see Wesley Snipes come back into that role, even if you are doing it, for instance, in the way that Logan sort of set up a continuation. You know, he passed away, but you still did have X-23 there. Even if they did it that way, where it shows like an older Blade kind of training a replacement that then can carry on that franchise, I'm okay with that. But like, bring back the original character. Even if you bring back the original character and somehow have like Mahershala Ali play like his son, or, you know, something like that, a friend, whatever, you know, set it up as like the next evolution of Blade, I'm happy with that. You know, if I look at movies, you know, like Batman or like Spider-Man, where it's a different person that's played that character kind of in each movie, I always have a favorite. I always have a person that I look at and I'm like, that person is just Batman for me forever. And I never end up really watching or enjoying any of the rest of the films. I have a Spider-Man that I prefer to watch. And if it's anyone but him, I will not watch the movie, you know, unless he's involved in it somehow. Same with Batman. I know what Batman I like. I know that I'm not really going to enjoy the rest of the other films. That's just kind of how I am. So I loved getting to see Wesley Snipes come in and play Blade again. I loved getting to see Elektra. I loved getting to see, you know, all of the different people that were in it, all of the different characters that were in this one. And I really loved getting to see X-23. I loved her coming back, and even though she's, you know, obviously talking to a different Logan, still being able to say to him, you know, it doesn't matter which version of you is the version, like, you are at the core of yourself still the same being, still the same person. So you are capable of great things, even if you haven't done that before. I'm so obsessed with this film, you guys. I can't really explain it. Like, there really are no words with how obsessed I am with this. And it has crossed, at this point, over $500 million. So we are definitely going to see this movie hit $1 billion. And I personally think that is well deserved. I just adore both of the actors that are in this now. I mean, I think I posted on Threads that I am very quickly starting to develop a girl crush on Hugh Jackman, which I have never had previously, but it's happening. Like, all of the interviews and stuff that he does, every time he giggles, it just lights me up inside. So I just adore him. I adore Ryan Reynolds. The pair of them together, I feel like, is just a lightning strike. You know, we're probably not going to see something like this again in terms of such a classic duo coming on screen. And then, of course, being able to see Hugh Jackman in that classic yellow suit is going to just stay in my brain until I die. It's going to be like my dying words, the yellow Wolverine suit. I'm just so stoked about this film. So I would love to know what your guys' favorite sort of spoilery moments are. Please do leave those in the comments for me, or start a conversation, because I will talk about Deadpool and Wolverine forever. Forever with you guys. So let me know what you thought of this one. Subscribe to join the Movie Nerd family, and I hope to see you in the next episode.